Hi, it's Sam. I'm going to show you an email that I sent to Shawn McCraney.
Based on last week's presentation where we decided to show the temple ceremony, we received this email. This is from one man who calls himself Sam Mueller. The Jews and Pharisees were so sure they were right in their assessment of Jesus that they crucified him. That was a big oops. How can someone, after seeing that lesson in history, be so sure of their puny reasoning power compared to God's wisdom as to bring about another crucifixion? This is what you're doing with the LDS temple ceremony. Why do you think you have more reasoning power than the foremost leaders of those days when they crucified Jesus? You are using the mind and wisdom of men and not the spirit in making your decisions. God told us not to do that. Furthermore, over the years, I've given you plenty of rebuttals to your claims which you have not addressed. The turning of your back to my help should worry you and help you suspect that the LDS could be right and that it would be dangerous undertaking to publicize the temple ceremony. Not only that, but to make fun of it as well. Here's some more help from me so that you can change your mind if you are humble and smart enough. You wonder how people in the early LDS church can be saved by not knowing the changes in the temple ceremony. Well, here's a simple answer. Jesus healed some people by putting mud on their eyes. Others he simply healed by stating his blessing. Another time it was dip oneself in the river 7 times. What? A change in healing methods? So which method of healing should we use? Perhaps the key word is faith. Perhaps it's obedience. Perhaps it's whether God tells us whatever God tells us at the moment. I guarantee you that the temple ceremony will change again in the future. It will change dramatically because needs and circumstances will change dramatically. And that's why we have prophets to let us know changing circumstances and their necessary resolutions. I've given you a plausible explanation for various versions of the first vision. I've given you explanations for Joseph's polygamous behavior. I've talked about Book of Mormon, the Egyptian Book of Abraham, the Egyptian papers. I've done as much as I possibly can, all with no rebuttal from you. Now I've given you help with the changing temple ceremony. So if you go ahead with your planned itinerary, then I'm dusting my feet off at you again. And this will result in more problems for you, not just a 5-minute blackout at God's hands. I don't know how, when it will happen, but it will happen in God's own time. It will happen. You can count on that. Don't say you've never received fair warning.
And here's his reaction.
And then he does the easiest thing on earth when it comes to a threat. I warn you, you are going to suffer. I don't know when it's going to happen. I can't tell you how, but I promise you. So I get an infected tooth, and I'm in the dentist chair, and he's giving me a root canal, and you can't help but think, is this because this is how humans work, and so that's how they get you. Anything that goes wrong, he's trying to get into my head to think it's because of this. Let me tell you something, you piece of wimpiness. You're a liar, and what you're trying to do is manipulate me with fear. I don't fear. I have faith in the Lord Jesus Christ and in God. So you can take your priesthood and all your veiled threats and put them somewhere else.
As you have seen, Shawn McCraney was very irritated at the email wherein I threatened him with my own kind of prophecy. This is very understandable, as we've seen that reaction throughout history. This is how people react when someone calls them on the carpet. We've seen it in the Bible, and the LDS have seen it in the Book of Mormon. Stone him, slay him, call him a piece of wimpiness. Why do people get so offended? Is it because the truth hurts? Think about that. When Shawn called me a liar and a piece of wimpiness, I wasn't offended at all because it wasn't true. I have been called on the carpet before, and when I knew the other guy was right and I was wrong, I did become very offended and angry. It's human nature. Shawn said I was trying to scare him. No, I was only giving him fair warning. In the past, God has always warned his people about their errant ways before stepping in. Now let me interject here a disclaimer. I'm not saying Shawn McCraney is an evil man. On the contrary, he is probably a good, upstanding pillar of the community. He is a good family man, a devout Christian, and he has brought many people to Jesus. His family loves him and defends him. He has a quick wit and a lot of charisma. He certainly seems to be blessed of the Lord. But I think it's possible to be a good man while having a few weaknesses. Shawn himself admits that. This idea is supported by the story of Balaam, the prophet from Pethor, whose donkey had to save him from an angel's sword. Ananias and Sapphira seemed to be in good standing, but when their lie to the Lord was made known, they died right there on the spot. So why do I put Shawn McCraney and Balaam in the same category? Because Shawn McCraney makes fun of something that has proven to bring many people to Jesus, and he has been known to do it through deception. I'm not saying the LDS Church is true, although I do believe it is. I'm not trying to push that for now. I'm only trying to point out through a biblical concept that Shawn is walking on thin ice. In Mark 9:38-40, a stranger was casting out devils in Jesus' name. But Jesus said not to forbid him, for, he said, there is no man which shall do a miracle in my name that can lightly speak evil of me. For he that is not against us is on our part. Who can deny that we have done miracles in his name, many miracles, and that we are not against Jesus? So whether the LDS Church is true or not, I'd say Shawn McCraney is going against Jesus' directives when he discourages people from practicing Mormonism, especially while using misconceptions. Now, referring to the threats, they are based on my conviction that the LDS Church is God's church. If that's the case, then Shawn is walking in Saul's shoes, and his situation is a little more precarious. Hence, the warning. And if the church is God's true church, then my prophecy will definitely come true. And when it does, Shawn will know it is God's warning. A root canal will not be it. That is something that happens to us all. When the real thing comes, Shawn will know it. It will be as clear to him as Saul's was to Saul. Shawn, and you of his followers out there, you should not take this possibility lightly, because each and every issue that I refuted has not been successfully debunked. If you think you have debunked any of my issues, please show me how, because I'm convinced you haven't. When I told Shawn that I would dust my feet off at him again, I wasn't referring to the blackout. I don't think I caused that. I'm pretty sure I didn't, because it was an iffy thing. I was referring to the time while he was still on TV. I dusted my feet off at him, and within a month or two, he was off the air. You may say that I wasn't responsible for that because the political situation within the system had been going on for months, if not weeks. Well, maybe you're right, but the Lord uses inevitable events to help his prophets make prophecies. I felt that I should say what I said, and I said it. I feel that the Lord inspired me to say it. I think the Lord knew what was going to happen, and he told me to warn Shawn. Before I dusted my feet off at him, though, I prayed to the Lord that my action wouldn't hurt any innocents. I realized the talent his daughters have and the rest of his family, and I didn't want them to get hurt, didn't even want him to get hurt. I just felt like I had to do it, and so I did it.